Welcome back to A Sharp. It's
you.
fantastic for you to have allowed us to come back in and kind of do this whole process again. I did really want to find out, given that you have had such a prolific career, how you got started in producing and engineering.
Prolific, what a word. It's my mother's fault. I blame it on the family. Mother's a concert pianist. I was born under a grand piano, and I didn't have, not actually, no, but maxi cozy underneath, and there you go. And basically spent most of my youth surrounded by music, which was great, and ended up being in school bands and doing bits and pieces and stuff, and got involved in sort of keyboards and started gigging in various places around Kingston and London and all sorts, and got a friend who got a job in a recording studio, and I thought that was great, and I just hung around there. And his name was David White, and that was back in Kingston upon Thames. I don't think the studio's open anymore. In fact, all the studios I used to work in have been closed. It's not because of me, I promise. But,
just went through all of them.
It's just the time, really. So we had a good start at BB Recording Studios, and I loved it. And I just hung around and washed up coffee cups and stayed there until 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and then went to work. Yeah, Mum said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in the studio." "God, you treat the house like a hotel," which I actually say to my children, my daughters these days. So yeah, that's how it all started, really.
Okay, so was that from like behind the glass, like in the live room section, or did you kind of go into the recording studio?
No, I played keys and recorded keys for a couple of bands, which were quite successful. We actually got offered a contract with PolyGram, but it didn't go through for a variety of reasons. I wasn't around at the time; I was on holiday. But it was all down a question to money and time and everything else. And so basically I ended up sort of hanging around in the recording studio and ended up tape hopping. As Steve quite rightly said, today's they're called assistants. In our day it was tape ops. And they always had, whenever I used to go to the studio, it was great because they used to, I'm sure they did it on purpose, but the engineer would sit behind the desk and a tape op chair was always a foot lower than everybody else in the studio, so you're like really hunched here, looking up, you know your place, you'll stay there.
Oh, wow.
So it was good fun. It was old school. So that's basically how I got into it, and
Very cool.
I loved it. So,
And so from that, you've kind of, I would guess, given that you played a lot of music and were in a few bands, that you had maybe early influences in music that kind of maybe tailored you into moving into that.
Very much so. At that time, it was more the electronic music, so it was sort of. Howard Jones and Trevor Horn was doing a lot of work with some of these producers at the time, the English scene. And I just loved playing keyboards in bands. In my day, we used to have the old cassettes with the old MIDI on the cassettes. So during the stage, on stage, we had to put the cassette into the Yamaha sequencer and upload all the MIDI data into the sequencer before we could do the next song. So it was like 2 or 3 minutes. Well, I'm exaggerating, probably 30 seconds. We had to wait until
That's like a lot of movement.
When all the keyboards were. I was proud. I used to have a rack of keyboards. It was great. That was fun. So so that was the early influences, really.
Okay, so more of that electronic kind of area. And so from having gone into bands, being the tape operator. I like bop better, but that's just me. What were kind of the important parts for you as a producer and engineer when you get in the studio?
Getting everybody on the same psyche, really. Getting everybody sort of ready for business and ready for work. Making sure they're relaxed. Making sure everything's ready and working when they walk in. That's always good. Because I find that when you have artists, you don't know, sometimes you've got bands walking, you've never met everybody in the band before. And so therefore, as you're in the chair, as it were, either producer, engineer, or just Mr. Engineer, trying to get people on the same level as you, so you can understand what they want and what's required of you. I'm a big fan of knowing a lot, as much as I can before they walk in. So knowing the names of the band members, it may sound really strange, but it's pretty important. Knowing what they've done before, knowing what instruments they play, how well they play it, how many times the drummer's got, that sort of thing. So
is that pre-production that you would say?
No, that's more just sort of research before the actual gig walks in, making sure you know what might, because actually having a track beforehand is always handy, because that way you can sort of work out vocals and microphones and get an idea for the sound they're going for. I find these days too many sort of, you walk in and then the mics are up, whereas have to listen to the room and have to understand the sound you want to record and work towards the end, really. That's another way of doing it. Yeah, there you go. I'm waffling again. I waffle a lot.
No, that's fine. So in the sense of like getting everybody onto the same page in group psyche, how, like, what process do you generally go through for
Depends
that?
on the people. Depends on
Group
who walks in.
meditation,
Yeah, it depends on the personalities and how chillaxed they are when they walk in.
Yeah.
Some people they seem very sort of relaxed when they walk in, but as soon as they stand behind the mic or they go behind the drum kit and they got to play to a click track or they don't want to play with a click track and you're trying to guide them, then you sort of see the personalities come out really. But it's all good fun. That's the secret. Fun. If you have fun, then normally, and no stress, then normally everything sort of just goes nice and smoothly.
Okay.
Hopefully. Anyway. I hope so.
Have you had any like particular projects that have been the most fun that you kind of went, that was just the best time ever and I'll never top it? Or do you just make everything fun?
I try and make everything fun. I think in terms of one session I did enjoy recently was with it was the North Shore Synagogue. They came in here. It was a string quartet and piano quintet there for Encanto. Superb musicians, all graduates of the conservatorium.
Yeah.
And it was like the score on the desk, and it's like old school pencil and rubber, and you're sort of working out the notation and work. That was great fun. That's one side of things that I do like. And on the other side of things, you can get like a young band coming in off the street. I shouldn't say that. Yes. Get a young band off the street. A young band who've got a dream of going somewhere, and they're trying their hardest.
Yeah.
And then you sort of point out something to them, and they like it, and it sort of takes off in a new direction, and they're all enthralled. I've had that recently as well with another band, which is all good fun.
Yeah.
Every session is a little bit different, really.
Okay.
Well, the idea is to make it different, because if you don't, then it becomes monotonous, and then you don't enjoy it anymore.
And is that kind of like a rule in
Yeah,
your
pretty
studio
much.
time? Try to make it different?
I always, it's not so much about, I mean, a lot of people muck about with the signal flow and say, oh, well, this time I'm going to try the 1081 instead of a 1073 on the guitar. And I think it's just a question of enjoying it and trying to get the best out of it. And if the vocalist is there...
putting things in holes.
No, not randomly putting things in holes. It's just sort of, you have to understand the source, you have to understand what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to capture. But at the same time, just enjoy it, I think, is the important part. Because if you enjoy it, then everybody else is relaxed.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than having somebody sitting in the chair saying, "Oi, shh, I can't hear," because you've got people behind talking, as it were. I find that disingenuous, really. But no, enjoyment is the most important thing.
Okay.
Just chillax.
So, do you have like maybe general session rules other than just enjoyment? Like, when people are recording, everybody does have to be quiet, or that if people are stressed, they should take it to the next room, or
No,
like, do you have,
not
like,
really.
microphone
I can be an old fart sometimes as well. I'm not afraid of turning around to somebody and saying, "Oi,"
Yeah.
we're trying to record it.
And do you think like having that kind of authoritarian
You
kind
have
of
to
side
control
to
the
it
session.
is also very important?
Yeah, because you're working against the clock.
Yeah.
A day is a day. I mean, I'm not particularly worried if a day is 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, or 14 hours if the ears keep up. Sometimes you have sessions where everything's just happening and it's all flowing and everybody sort of gets geared up and into
You just
it.
want to kind of keep
And you just keep it going.
Yeah.
But if it's not going well, I'm more than happy to turn around and say, "Hey guys, let's time out. Let's chillax a second and see let's take stock of the situation and come back another day."
Okay.
Budget permitting, and we've done that many times. I've turned around to artists and said, "Okay, your voice just isn't working. I know you can do better than that.
Yeah.
Let's just stop the session. Let's look at the calendar and book back in next week. We've got some time coming up. We'll find another space for you."
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what's important is whoever walks out of that door at the end of a session is, one, happy with what's happened, has enjoyed it, has got the product they want, and is going to turn around and say, "Wow, that was a really good session." I mean, recently we had a really good band, a very successful band. They've had more hits in Australia than any. More top 40 hits in Australia than any other international or national band, and they came in here recently. And at the end of the session, one of the head members of the band turned around and said, "That has been one of the most enjoyable and productive recording sessions I've ever had."
That must feel pretty good.
That's cool. I like
Yeah.
that. I'm still pretty chuffed.
Patting on the back.
That's great.
I'm
all good
amazing.
fun. That's good. So that's the secret, because afterwards, word of mouth, and I just
It
want
kind of
people to come in
spreads.
here and be happy.
Yeah.
And enjoy themselves. You
So-
can't get a better kick out of that than that. Really.
Yeah, no, of course not. So considering that you do, like, you work with a lot of different genres, do you have a particular genre that you love producing that you kind of like, oh, you've got to sink my teeth
No,
into?
not at all. Anything that tickles my fancy, really. I've done EDM, trance, I've done gospel, I've done choirs, I've done schools, I've done orchestras, I've done quintets, I've done rock, I've done punk, I've done country
interesting, I'm
and
sure.
western. So anything really, I don't mind. What I get out of it is there's always something in the music that sort of, you listen to it, oh, that's really cool. That could be a bass line, it could be a vocal line, or I had Worship Mob come in here a few weeks ago, and they had this singer come down from Brisbane. She's got a superb voice, and I was sitting here, one of the lead guitarists, and she just hit this line, and she went straight up to the note, hit the note, and just the way she weaved her way down was beautiful. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm actually being paid to record and listen to this. And if you get into that situation, then you've won.
Sweet.
Yeah, you're doing what you like. I'd hate to do something I didn't like. I've done it before, so I know what it's like. So
I can say I don't like doing
I
it.
don't like doing that. So no, but being paid for what you do and what you enjoy doing is fantastic. I've always wanted to own a recording studio ever since I was like 18 years old, and I tried to raise money back then to do it. It never happened. It took me a few years to get there, but finally we got here. And I think all the things I've learned over the years, I'm going to put towards the right model.
Yeah.
Not just for myself, but the other engineers and freelance engineers and people who use this studio,
Yeah.
so that therefore they can. It's just sort of creating a little buzz, like a network, a community.
Yeah.
I find studios can be very insular and secular in the way we're not telling you who's been to us. And what
There's
I'm
a
trying,
trend.
I'm sort of more open with that. We've recently done a sistership with Ginger Studios in Melbourne.
Yeah.
With Jimmy Wyatt, and we're going to do a few more around
cool.
Australia, and there's a few interesting plans for the future as far as this studio is concerned, and what we're trying to do basically in the industry, which will be good fun.
And that's kind of something that's a little bit more prevalent in maybe the UK scene than it has been ever here in Australia. So you're trying to kind of inject that here?
Yeah,
Is that
I
what you're
reckon
kind
so.
of aiming
Yeah,
for?
yeah. People talk to each other.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think it's excellent when people talk to each other and actually talk about what's going on, who's doing what, and a little bit more open. There shouldn't be all this sort of dagger and pokery going on, as it were. And hey, it's just money's money. Don't get me wrong, business is business. But at the same time, in this industry, I think it's important to be as professional and as open and as honest as possible, because reputation is everything. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, reputation is everything. If you're going to do something, do it properly. If you can't do it, then say you can't do it, or try and get support so that you are able to do it.
Yeah. Find the people that do know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Absolutely so.
And is that a big challenge in trying to establish something like that, where it's open and honest? Is that there is that kind of
No, because it
industry
comes from the
tendency to
people.
not?
It comes from the ethos. It comes from the people who work in the business. If the people in the business think and breathe that way, then they will be that way. The business will be that way. And all you want is just a group of like-minded individuals who just love music, who want to produce music and work with musicians. And if they love it, the result will happen.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's pretty simple. We try and keep it simple anyway.
Try to keep it straightforward.
Absolutely, yes.
So what have, on that kind of tangent of challenges, have you found that there has been anything particularly challenging, or that is the biggest challenge that you've had so far in your career?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there have been any massive challenges. I think you take everything in your stride. Oh, there's days when you think, oh, this has happened, that's happened, and you sort of get back to the house and you think to yourself, God, blimey, what a day, what the hell happened today? You just
want to lie in a dark
hit
room
you.
and close my eyes.
I just want to lie in a dark room with a large glass of wine. But it just hits you, as it were, and you don't know why. But you just keep on going.
Okay.
That's it. You don't sort of worry about it. You just
You just keep it
yeah.
rolling.
You